On the holiest night in the holiest month in the Islamic religion, Pakistani jets bombarded Kabul in what they said was a headquarters of the Afghan Taliban. But the Afghan Taliban government and its spokesperson Zabiullah Mujahid says that a rehabilitation center for drug addicts was the target and many civilians have been killed. To get an idea what's going on in Kabul at the moment, in what is the fiercest, harshest bombardment that the capital has seen in years, at least since the return of the Taliban government. We're joined by Ubaidullah Bahir from Kabul, Afghanistan. Thank you so much, Ubaidullah. Let's begin with the situation on the ground. What can you tell us and what do you know?
A few hours ago, bombing started, is heard around the city. Multiple locations were hit. News is journalists report on the ground of the burning buildings. These are people who've suffered for years from addiction. They're finally put into programs to get some semblance of life back. And then they're bombed in Ramadan as part of this senseless conflict that Pakistan is waging with no end game in sight. I mean, Ali, look, it's so crazy as to how they sit in Saudi Arabia, according to the defense minister, Mullah Yaqub. A lot of matters are discussed and agreed upon. They're very close to signing on a document. The Taliban have already agreed to terms, and Pakistan just needs to put pen to paper, and Pakistan starts bombing Afghan cities. After that, we have the delegation, despite claiming publicly that Pakistan would not engage in dialogue, the delegation headed by Fazl Rahman Khalil lands in Kabul. It's received by the Taliban. The Taliban have been very clear so far that they're open to dialogue, they're open to diplomacy and solving matters beyond the battlefield. And despite that message being given, I mean, Ali, despite military touts claiming that Fazl Rahman Khalil had gone in personal capacity, we both know that no one does anything in their personal capacity. Especially considering that a day ago the foreign ministry had announced that no one, or the Ministry of Information had announced that people weren't allowed to even discuss foreign policy, let alone take such big measures. And during that approach, even as soon as that delegation comes back, bombing is resumed. Then you have the Chinese intervention or mediation or shuttle diplomacy that's been happening. And you saw the article that came out earlier claiming that Pakistan had refused Chinese mediation in this conflict. And then you had the Foreign Office scramble and put out a statement saying, no, we hadn't done so. And in that hours after that press release, you bomb Kabul like this. No hope of dialogue or an end to this conflict exists, then if you're headed to the abyss, the Afghan government is more than happy to head into the abyss with the Pakistani military regime. And it's ugly, it's sad, because they're setting up a conflict that does not have a good end for either side.
The Pakistanis say that they are carrying out these attacks because they believe that this is the only language that the Afghan Taliban understand. They say that all this talk about the Afghan Taliban defeating over 20 years of insurgency, the American occupation, is just talk, that it would not have been possible without Pakistani assistance and without Pakistan providing them with logistical support and support in their areas of operation inside Pakistan. And they also say that because now the Afghan Taliban is a governing force, is part of a government structure, it is not an insurgent force. So it stands to lose a lot more than the Pakistanis do. And that they can achieve these goals by bombarding from the air, that they don't need to necessarily deploy ground forces. What would you say to all of this?
I mean, it's ridiculous. to the fact that the possible end games in the heads of the military engineers of this war of aggression in Pakistan is that either they will bomb the Taliban so hard that they will cave in to their demands. Um, A, for starters, extremely unrealistic scenario. B, if they'd read anything about the Taliban's history, is they were willing to go to the extremes to not compromise or give in to pressure. I mean, they wouldn't have lost their first government if they were the kind of people that would give in to external pressure. And then lastly, it assumes that the Taliban can give an order to the TTP and the TTP would forego all its political goals and its vendetta against the Pakistani army's aggression towards them in the past 2 decades, based on just the Taliban telling them to do so, which again doesn't make sense. And the other scenario that the Pakistani military regime actually thinks is likely is that they would hurt Afghanistan and the Taliban so much that the people would finally rise up against the Taliban. I mean, if there's one thing that makes sure that a government finds popular support, it is its opposition to foreign intervention. And this fear of the outsider rallies people around regimes that they have fundamental differences of opinion with, which you see in a lot of the Afghan diaspora or exiled politicians who are now turning around and happy to see the Taliban defend the country with such honor and valor. That being said, the fact that so many countries have been embroiled in the Middle East in the conflict is just extremely suspicious. The timing of the Pakistani adventurism into Afghanistan, and it, I mean, maybe it's not far-fetched to assume that Pakistan's bombing tonight is just trying to convince Saudi Arabia and other allies that they're supposedly in bed with, that they're so caught up in their own war that they can't come through for them. And so it could very much be a distraction tactic. But it's not well thought through. It would not end anything. It would not contain the TTP. The TTP is at the core of this issue, and the solution to that core is having a long-term solution for the TTP that is not military, because apparently you've tried the military option for over a decade. Where has that gotten you? So unless you have a political vision, no end to this conflict would be seen, and neither would you ever be able to settle the security situation within the country. So unless you realize that the only solution to this insurgent movement within is dialogue, is a political path, this is just going to keep raging.
You mentioned the conflict in the Middle East, Iran, America, Israel, all these Gulf states. It's a back and forth, and there doesn't seem to be an end in sight there. Pakistan seems to be an integral part of all of the calculations there. They've been in touch with the Iranians. They have contact with the Saudis. The Saudis have played a role in trying to mediate between Pakistan and the Afghan Taliban. The Qataris have also played a role. The Turks have also played a role, and the Chinese have also played a role. And just in the past 24 hours, the Pakistanis refused a Chinese request to mediate, to find a political solution, and have decided to go on their own. How is this being viewed in Afghanistan by the Afghan Taliban government, firstly, and how do you see it play out in all of this situation?
I mean, look, at the core of any negotiations is the ability to trust your counterpart or take their word for things. There has to be some basic level of trust, and Pakistan's recent contradictory actions, and then its role even in the Middle East war, it just shows that they're, as someone who's on everybody's side is on nobody's side. And irony basically died 1,000 deaths in the Pakistani regime calling different Gulf states, Middle East countries who are at war with each other, telling every side that they're with them. It's just the same that they did with the United States, where they leached them for money, and then also supported their opposition groups as well. So the fact that there is no clear plan for Afghanistan, the fact that the Chinese have been very clear in their desire for de-escalation end to this conflict, and the Foreign Office's statement that it had not rejected the offer of Chinese mediation, then going ahead and conducting these bombings. I mean, look, you forced a group like the Taliban to conduct drone strikes against you. You know, you're a nuclear powered state who supposedly beats its chest and claims to take 80% of the government's budget because you are in danger and there's a siege mentality. And then a group like the Taliban can target you with drones, you know. So why bring yourself to that point? How much does that hurt your global image, be it your posturing in the Middle East, be it your adventurism in Afghanistan, be it your inability to defend your own against the Taliban? So all in all, I feel like Pakistan, the Pakistani military regime loses so much in this war. The fact that it has clearly lost the international PR end of this war as well. Every time they've bombed, they've been live images of civilian casualties being hit. This is the same Pakistani military that claimed they knew Afghanistan. Um, they knew every street and nook and cranny of Afghanistan, and that they knew exactly where the TTP were and had such strong information, actionable information. Somehow, name one TTP commander that has been hit inside Afghanistan in the past weeks of bombing, Ali. So, I mean, it's just
Sorry to cut you up, but the Pakistanis would digress. They would say that this is the only way for us to deal with them, and they would say that they now have a broad-based consensus. They would say, alternatively, the Afghan Taliban government is the one that is ostracized, and they would talk about Etim and different other groups. China, for example, it says yes, mediation, but at the same time, it says that China's on board when it comes to countering terrorism and cross-border terrorism emanating from Afghanistan. Qatar, as well, to an extent, has been ostracized in the Pakistani debate. So the Pakistanis are riding on some sort of high, given what is going on in the Middle East, and they say that their position of being neutral, of not choosing sides, is the correct one. Very quickly, Ubaidullah, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, I mean, look, it isn't really working out well for the United States and Israel. They started a war that they had no plans regarding what the end game would look like. Pakistan is doing the exact same thing. It seems like it's being copied play for play. And ultimately, these international actors, even the closest friends like China, when they're mediating, when they realize that your war is an unjust one and does not even achieve the goals that you're supposedly out to achieve, you're going to have to succumb to Chinese pressure and settle, and it will probably be for some sort of financial gain as well. So, I mean, if these strategic goals were so important, then how come you just settle so quickly? All this bravado of no dialogue, and then you're sending delegations. Afghanistan didn't send a delegation, and now the Chinese pressure is going to make you cave and end this senseless war that you don't even have the economy for. I mean, you barely have fuel to run your school buses, and somehow your jet planes are ready to bomb children in Afghanistan or drug addicts in Afghanistan. So it's a senseless war, hurts Pakistan on the international stage as an economy, as a military regime that was propped up as a power force in the region, and they can't seem to take on the Taliban, who are just 5 years into a government. So all in all, it's a lose-lose war on both sides. I'm not even going to claim that Afghanistan can win this, but Afghanistan's not going to lose to a few bombings in cities here and there. It's just extremely inhumane to see intentional targeting of civilians, and it's been extremely shameful.
Final question, very quickly. India. Pakistan says that the Indians are behind what is happening in Pakistan and are supporting the Afghan Taliban and the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, or the Pakistani Taliban as well. But they're not going to go attack India. They're still taking out their frustrations on Afghanistan, it seems. Very quickly, go ahead, please.
I mean, we should all be over this whole Indian boogeyman narrative that the Pakistani military has built, where everything that is wrong with Pakistan, every failure of the government, be it the democracy, be it internal security, be it the economy, it's always an Indian conspiracy going on against it. And the fact that they could not ensure good relations with Afghanistan, despite the Taliban, who were historically very close to them, coming to power, that failure. Somehow the Republic wasn't good because apparently it was being controlled by India, and then somehow the Taliban, who were against the Republic, are also controlled by India. Make it make sense, you know? So, yeah, I mean, it's always they burn our cities. They don't realize that at some point, someone bigger than them are going to burn their cities. And despite my anger that makes me want to wish that upon Pakistan. I would not wish that upon anyone. Civilians need to be protected everywhere. And it's a shame that not enough Pakistanis are speaking up for what's happening to their Muslims.
Thank you so much, Abdullah Bahir. And thank you for joining us from Kabul, which is under attack, has been under attack by Pakistani jets in what has been the biggest attack so far, which the Afghan Taliban spokesperson, Zabiullah Mujahid, says targeted drug addicts. The Pakistanis have a different narrative. They say that they're attacking terror facilities, terror bases, headquarters. But this is a war that isn't ending and will not end if the Taliban decide to reciprocate. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section. Do like, subscribe, and share this content. I'll see you guys soon. Take care. Till then.